I appreciate that, and it's wonderful to be back here in California and to see all of you, and wish you all the best. My topic tonight is problems with the Obama administration's foreign policy. So settle in, this could take 8 or 9 hours. But actually, it works out. It's really very simple. When President Obama took the oath of office on January the 20th, 2009, when it came to foreign policy and national security, he wasn't qualified to be president. Today, over 2 years later, he's still not qualified to be president. And we are, as was entirely foreseeable, now suffering from a crisis in American leadership around the world. In large part, it's because events internationally, foreign policy unfolds very differently than domestic policy does. And I think the crises that we now see both in the Middle East and in Japan for very different reasons nonetheless show that the world doesn't wait for us. It's sort of like Humphrey Bogart's line in Casablanca, it seems that fate has taken a hand. And indeed it has. What do we need to know to understand the Obama foreign policy? Number one, he doesn't care about foreign policy. He doesn't care about national security as an issue. He's the first president since Franklin Roosevelt who isn't motivated every day by a concern for American national security. He's more concerned with the European social democratic model that he likes so much that he's trying to impose on this country. He just doesn't pay attention to the subject except when he's absolutely unable to avoid it. Number two, he doesn't see the rest of the world as terribly threatening to American interest. He doesn't see challenges to American authority. He believes that American decline is perfectly acceptable. He doesn't believe in the global war on terrorism. He doesn't even like to talk about it. He said during the 2008 campaign that Iran was a tiny country. Now, it happens to be a tiny country that's pursuing nuclear weapons. This is a small problem, you know? Now, when you combine just a general lack of interest in national security with the feeling that there aren't many threats to the national security, in olden days, you would have produced a kind of isolationism. But that's not the direction that President Obama went in. He went really in the opposite direction, toward multilateralism, towards a faith in international institutions to provide collective security for the United States and others. So he's combined both a misperception of the importance of foreign policy, a misunderstanding of the threats the country faces, together with a misapprehension about how to protect those interests that he cares to defend. You look at this in context, and it's, I think, clear that he is our first post-American president. Now that's a carefully chosen phrase. I didn't say un-American. I didn't say anti-American. I said post-American, because he's kind of beyond all that patriotism stuff. You know, he's got a much broader view of what our policy should be. And I think you can see this worldview unfolding in a variety of different contexts, and I'll touch on some of them later this evening. Before I get into it, it's entirely appropriate to ask, well, what is our response to that? Certainly, it's not to say, as some people do, that we shouldn't be involved in the external world defending our interests at all, that there's too much going on, that America needs to look to its own economic travails here. Really, it's the sort of conservative mirror image of what's wrong with the Obama policy. And neither is it to have any faith in Wilsonian notions of multilateralism, nor to believe in yet another utopian Wilsonian fallacy to try and make the world safe for democracy. Instead, our answer is the answer given by Theodore Roosevelt, the Republican Roosevelt, when asked about Wilson's campaign to make the world safe for democracy. Roosevelt said, "First, we are to make the world safe for ourselves." That is our priority. That is the Republican approach. Which is why, even in a time of very tight budgets and horrendous budget deficits that threaten the basic economic strength of the country, we cannot stint on military spending to protect our interests and our allies and ourselves around the world. It's a very difficult political point to make, but if you think we're spending too much on defense today, I have to ask you to look at it again. I'm not saying there isn't waste and fraud in the Defense Department. Of course there is. It's part of the government. It goes with the territory. But a dollar well spent on our national defense is far more important than a dollar well spent in the Department of Education. I don't know, what is a dollar well spent in the Department of Education? Answer that. What we spend on our national defense is important not only for ourselves, but for our children and our grandchildren as well. And as difficult as these choices are that Congress is about to make, balancing the budget on our defense capabilities is a huge mistake. Now, let me just turn to a couple of the issues that we're seeing that our country is confronting right at the moment that help illustrate the travails that we're undergoing because of the lack of leadership from the White House. And let's just start with events in Libya, where we have seen the president in the course of a month take about 3 different positions on what our Libya policy was, including most recently in the past 48 hours, a 180-degree shift in his administration's view of a no-fly zone applied in Libya. Now, Libya is a particular case for the United States because it's ruled by Muammar Gaddafi, a terrorist who has killed Americans. He ordered the destruction of Pan Am 103, killing 270 innocent civilians in 1988, 189 of them Americans. He ordered the bombing of the LaBelle discotheque in Berlin a few years before that, killing American servicemen. This is somebody who has terrorism in his blood. Now, it is true that in 2003 and 2004, we negotiated the end of Gaddafi's nuclear weapons program. And knowing everything I know now, I would do it again. Can you imagine this lunatic today with nuclear weapons? And by the way, that was a side benefit of the overthrow of Saddam Hussein when Gaddafi saw what had happened to Saddam